let me give you the backdrop of this discussion first. So we came to Singapore in November, and we met with NUS Enterprise, one of the directors, Don, and we were talking about, okay, what is Singapore all about? Is it, and is there an opportunity between Singapore and Bangladesh to work together? This is what we heard from her on the left-hand side, that Singapore is a leading innovator. You have growing number of startups. There are 40,000 plus, some of the sources suggest. We know that from NUS Enterprises, 800 plus who have gone through the program already. But they're facing multiple challenges. Due to the aging population, there is a shortage of talent, right? There are 42,000 tech jobs which have been created between April 2017 to March 2019, which is almost here. Between this time, 42,000 tech jobs, but due to the aging population, it's difficult to get the right talent in. And even more so, because of the rising cost of living, it's difficult to get the right talent in at the right cost. And one more thing which is happening in Singapore is that outsourcing is not very, very common. If you go to US, if you go to UK, outsourcing is very common. All the companies offshore to some of the destinations, India, Bangladesh, Philippines, somewhere or the other. But in Singapore, it's not as common. So we talked to NUS Enterprise in terms of how to drive this forward. Is there a way that we can communicate what advantages the Singaporean community can get by outsourcing to Bangladesh? So what we'll do over the next 5 minutes is get to know the Bangladesh story a bit better, and the Bangladesh value proposition in terms of the delivery. If you have an IT company in Singapore, how can you get some of your development work or IT services work done from Bangladesh? Secondly, we'll talk about, is there a business opportunity? Is there a market available in Bangladesh where you can expand your business to as well? This one will be a bit generic for some of you because to make it applicable for everyone, we've kept it at a higher level. And we'll answer your questions. To answer your questions today, we have the government of Bangladesh representatives as well as a lot of the industry players here, and we have been working in the IT sector in Bangladesh for the last 18 months. We're happy to answer from BCG as well. In a nutshell, to give you an idea of what Bangladesh is all about, it's a young, innovative, and fast-growing country. Why do I say fast-growing? It's the second fastest-growing economy globally, with more than 7% GDP growth over the last couple of years. Recently, an Economist article also cited that Bangladesh is expected to be the second fastest growing economy in 2019 as well, just behind Syria. Syria, most of the growth is coming from, because they're coming out of war, there's a lot of recovery growth that is happening in Syria. So Bangladesh, in effect, sustainable growth-wise, Bangladesh is pretty much the fastest growing economy in the world right now. More than 80 million people are below the age of 25 years. So there's a large and young nation. Innovation-wise, there has been pockets of innovation, and a couple of them have really scaled up. So, in mobile financial services, there's this one startup which started around 10 years back. It's not a startup anymore, but bKash, who have grown to be the #1 mobile financial service provider in the world. And the country itself is the second largest apparel exporter after China. China is the biggest. Digital adoption-wise, 90% has gone digital. Mobile penetration is 90% plus, and there are 156 million mobile subscribers in the country right now. So that's a big one. The government is driving all this forward through a Digital Bangladesh program, which started back in 2008. I believe this was one of the first digital country program to start in the world. There have been many others after that, but one of the first ones. And these are some of the pillars and the vision. I'm not spending too much time on this, but I want to give you a brief idea on what the startup ecosystem in Bangladesh looks like today. So there are 500 plus startups. One of the audience members mentioned earlier that it's a much younger startup community compared to Singapore, where you have 40,000. Most of these are digital natives. 70% of the startups that are coming out most of them are digital natives. 70%. There have been 3+ large success stories. bKash, I've talked about, the largest mobile financial services in the world. Pathao is a ride sharing. I will just touch on them a bit later. And Sheva is an online marketplace for services. 7 accelerators, 2 incubators, and very interestingly, the government has set up a startup fund as well, where they would be investing in Bangladesh founded startups and they have earmarked $34 million to be invested in startups on behalf of the country. So all this startup growth is being fueled by a very basic economic driver, right? So there has to be something which is driving the growth of business in the country. And that growth is, we call it from BCG, we call it middle and affluent class driving consumption. So the consumption is being driven by the growth of this middle and affluent class, which the growth rate is remarkable of this class. We did a study from BCG back in 2015 on the country. And what we saw was there was 12 million people in the MAC category at that point. By 2025, this is expected to grow up to 33 million. So it's almost tripling in 10 years period. This MAC population, as we call it, is digital savvy as well. Most of them are smartphone users, and as we mentioned, mobile penetration right now is 90% plus. So all these MAC users, all this MAC population are using mobile already, and some of them are early adopters of online payments as well. The purchase preference, as we see, most of the respondents in the survey, what they mentioned was that they would like to trade up as soon as their income increases, and they are one of the most optimistic population. So what we found out is that the Bangladesh MAC population is more optimistic than China, Indonesia, and India. So one of the most optimistic MAC populations. So high growth, digitally savvy, would like to trade up to better services, and an optimistic population. All of this boils down to a very rosy picture in terms of consumer preference and consumer growth. And hence what we think is that there is a strong value for money proposition with ample focus on quality. And most importantly, we should focus on building mobile-centric digital platforms which can drive growth as quickly as possible. So utilizing these two, the startup ecosystem and the underlying economic driver of consumption, there have been several startups which have been very successful in the country. You've got international startups such as Uber. They were startups at one point. So Uber, Foodpanda, and Daraz, which is a Alibaba-owned e-commerce. They have been very successful, the international ones. Interestingly, some of the Bangladeshi ones, the three in the bottom, Pathao, bKash, and Sheva. So Pathao is the ride-sharing company where Gojek has invested. A lot of you might have heard about Gojek, based out of Indonesia. And they have 5 million customers, 200,000 plus drivers, and $100 million valuation. bKash is an Alipay funded and leading mobile financial industry, and they have 4.5 million transactions per day. 4.5 million transactions a day. And Sheva is another one who have been very successful. This is the largest household service aggregator in Dhaka city within. So there are several types of startups, as you see, that are coming up in the country, and all of these are being driven by what we mentioned, is that consumption growth as well as the ecosystem which the government has helped build. So this is one part of it. Is there a business opportunity? The answer from BCG that we've seen over the last 18 months is yes. We do see a business opportunity in Bangladesh for sure. Coming to the second question, can Bangladesh partner in terms of developing our business outside the country as well? So let's say you are developing a solution for the Singapore market or the Canada market, wherever. Can you utilize talent from Bangladesh to develop some of your solutions? Is that possible? Again, the answer to that, what we have seen over the last 18 months is yes. What we've seen is there is a large talent pool, 25 million people between the age of 18 to 25, significant cost arbitrage. This is a study that we did in conjunction with Everest Group, which is a third-party independent analyst. And if we take Bangalore as 100, so if you set up a center in Bangalore, if it costs you $100, setting up the same center in Dhaka would cost you 80. Dhaka is the capital city of Bangladesh, that would cost you 80. If you go to a lower cost location in Bangladesh, that will cost you 60. If you compare that with Philippines and Vietnam, those are even slightly more expensive. So we see a significant cost arbitrage of setting something up in the country. And there's an enabling infrastructure. I'll not talk too much about this because this has been covered a bit previously. And most importantly, it's not like the Bangladeshi companies are starting off today. They have been helping startups in terms of developing some of their solutions for the last few years. So you've got startups such as Khan Academy, PayPal, Spotify, Careem, who have all sourced their solutions from Bangladesh. None of these operate in Bangladesh, by the way. You don't have to. What they do is they hire tech talent in the country to develop solutions for them at a low cost. So one thing which we highlighted was a large talent pool. I just wanted to deep dive a bit more on that. Now, large talent pool, obviously there's a lot of people, but what does this mean in terms of are they educated people who are coming out of universities who can work for you? The answer to that again is yes. Large young English-speaking population, what close to 500,000 students are graduating from the tertiary graduation system every year. So back in 2016 it was 509,000, it was slightly higher now. And this is only public universities. So private universities, if you add that up, another 100 to 150K would be added to this. And if you think about whether can I communicate with them in terms of getting some of my work done, again, what we've seen is that the average TOEFL scores are higher than some of the other more established locations. If you look at Bangladesh, it's 87, whereas Vietnam is 82. So there is English proficiency in the country as well. I'll quickly skip this. So overall what's happening is that utilizing all the government support and the experience of working with global clients from before, a lot of the Bangladeshi IT and ITES companies have grown to a certain level where they can go ahead and grow globally as well. So this CXO, this event has been arranged where some of the Bangladeshi companies who have grown to be quite big and supporting global companies already to come and interact with Singaporean companies. We had a session yesterday with SG Tech. I'm not too sure if you've heard of them. So they are the Singaporean IT industry association, and they have helped the Bangladeshi companies mingle with some of the IT companies in the country. Similarly, what we have done today is we have collaborated with NUS Enterprise, and we have to see if there is a demand within the startup community to work with the Bangladeshi IT companies, either to go into the country or to source solutions from them for the global market. And these are the companies who are here today. So feel free to mingle with them after the session and ask any questions that you have. But before we move on, what we'd like to do is have a quick panel discussion in terms of us understanding what have some of the other companies, global companies, how have they benefited by working with Bangladeshi companies. So there are two panel members that we have here today with us. We have Mr. Andrew Tan. He is the CEO of PayPlus. He actually wears, I think, 3 different hats. The CEO of PayPlus, which is a fintech company, and then he's the executive director of BDO ASEAN and the executive director of Venge VC firm as well. Yeah. And we have Fumiko Inada. She is the CEO of TransferB. That is a blockchain-based global remittance company who helps transfer funds from up till now Malaysia to Bangladesh. And she has prior experience of working in the Bangladesh market as well with Bangladeshi companies and with Bangladeshi tech talent. So we'd like to hear from the people who have experienced this. So if Andrew and Fumiko, if you could join me on the stage. Please. So while starting off, I would love to kind of understand first of all a bit about yourself, and then we can go into some of the other discussions and take some questions from the audience regarding this experience as well. So Andrew.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrew. I'm Malaysian but based in Laos. When I got to Laos about 6-7 years ago, it was a very interesting country because it's pretty much one of the last horizon within ASEAN that there's a lot of things to do. The banking industry is very structured. The lot of things needed to be done before it can really function as a, shall we say, a new age company that can integrate into AEC. So we started the company about 3 years ago, called PayPlus, which focuses on domestic remittances and payments. We are still working on it, mainly due to the regulatory issues that we have in such countries, which I suppose is normal. But I think the good news is that no matter how conservative any government is, eventually, you'll see the light. So, yeah, that's been an interesting journey.
So, Inada-san, if you could give a brief introduction.
Thank you for this opportunity to sit by and share a vibe. I'm Himiko. I'm Japanese, but I stayed in Bangladesh almost 4.5 years. I run the 2 Japanese company, offshore related company, also product company. And now I'm shifting in Malaysia to start own remittance platform, providing the service for migrant workers, especially for Bangladesh living in Malaysia. So we want to create some aggregator platform for migrant workers. I'm still attached with the Bangladesh because of course, there are so many talent, also opportunities, also so many populations to work for other countries. So we want to serve for the Bangladesh economies, people.
Yeah, got it. So maybe when I sit down, it's a bit difficult for everyone to hear.
So what we'd love to understand a bit is your experience of working with either in Bangladesh or with Bangladeshi companies, and what has it been like? What are the things that you have liked? What are the things that you think are there areas of improvement as well? So we'd love to hear a bit about that.
Over the past few years in my journey, we've engaged with suppliers from Poland, from the UK, from Malaysia, Singapore, from India, and it was quite an interesting one because when I first started speaking to LCT, I didn't even know that they were Bangladesh.
Okay.
And in the tech world that we have right now, it's too small a world to really be able to say, are you a Malaysian company or are you a this company or whatever?
Yeah.
I think it was more important that my counterpart on the other side understood what I wanted to achieve, as well as how we can work together, and that it's a partnership that we're building from day one, built on trust.
Yeah.
And being very clear in our communication. I think that's been one of the better outcomes I've had.
Got it.
So what is the exact type of work that you generally take help from LCT, which is loosely coupled technologies? What exact type of work do they do with you?
Right. So they're helping us build a e-wallet platform, and we're working very closely with Norin. And in emerging countries like Laos, it's a lot more about stripping things down as opposed to adding bells and whistles.
Yeah.
And the way to sort of conquer such a market very quickly is to make it as cheap as possible to use, as simple to use, and to make it a no-brainer, zero-risk trial. And what I mean by that is that chances of losing your digital money should be as low as possible. Being able to refund your e-money should be done instantly. There should be no holding periods where, like I think some of the bike sharing issues were that the deposits would have taken quite a long time to get back. Our model is that the moment you can cash out from the agent will pay you. So things like that. We are looking at it more from a human perspective rather than technology. And Firuz and his team have been very good with, sort of creating a user experience journey that is specific to that type of market.
Got it.
Okay. Similarly, Nadasan, from you as well, would love to hear about your experience in Bangladesh and a bit about maybe what sort of work that you have done in the country.
Right. During my stay in Bangladesh and worked with IT company 3 years, 2 Japanese company, then we worked with almost 30 to 40 Bangladesh engineers together. Then I found that so they are really enjoy to stay with us, and it means they are very curious. They have a talent, not only skill talent, but also curious to know new type of issue, not only technology, but also want to see the Japanese culture. Or because we have some contents at my previous company, Oceanite, so we have a designer in Japan. Also, we have a platform for university students or elementary students, and so they can see the latest illustrations. Also, there's some web contents, and for first time. Then also they can engineering the front end, also back end. So someone who knows, who curious about Japanese culture, they particularly shows particular interest into more, how can I say, more aspirations to work with us. So we enjoy to this kind of curiosity, and to someone has a big, then so it's more win-win collaboration, I feel, than to produce more productivities, and we feel that.
Got it. So, utilizing this curious talent, what are the type of work that you've seen, or you yourself have done with some of the Bangladeshis?
Oh, basically we produce the web platform, also mobile platform. So we hiring the engineers who doing the front-end engineer, also back-end engineer. So Laravel, also the iOS and Android, this kind of platform we providing as engineers.
Okay, understand. So in terms of you working with loosely coupled and you mentioned about clear communication being one of the strong points, right? What are the areas that you feel that your experience of working with Bangladeshis that you feel that we can be better at?
Well, firstly, I just realized that my jacket and the couch actually blend in.
Nice camouflage.
Yeah. But on a more serious note, I think the face-to-face consultation and being able to just draw things out on the board and immediately resolve it, that part is missing. Which is why Firuz and I meet quite often.
Yep.
It's a very expensive meeting, but I think during critical parts of the project is very, very important. I think that's the key point. Everything else, technology has been able to help us overcome or even become more efficient.
Got it. Understand. Okay. Now, what I'd love to do is bring the audience in a bit as well, and just to help out some of my Singaporean startup friends in terms of understanding how other startups have helped, other startups have taken advantage of the Bangladesh opportunity. I think there's one matured startup who have set up a delivery center plus a development center in the country that we have in the audience. So I'd like to invite to give a short understanding of what Augmetics does. So Augmetics, just to give you a brief overview, it's a Google Glass based medical device. So basically doctors would wear the Google Glass, and everything would get captured on the back end by medical scribes, right? And Augmetics offers that service in US, and they have a large development and delivery center in Bangladesh. So Mr. Rashid Noman is the country director of that. So Mr. Rashid, if you can give us an idea.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you, Tosef. So as Tosef said, we're a US-based company. We started in 2012. We came to Bangladesh in 2013 with the goal to develop our software, the product we offer in Bangladesh. So basically, as Tosi said, we are a technology-based healthcare platform. We have 3 products, and everything is developed in Bangladesh. We started it with 4 software engineers. Today we have 47 software engineers. But as we have expanded our business in operations in 5 countries, all the back offices are also in Bangladesh. All the finance, HR, legal, compliance, everything is in Bangladesh. So right now, along with 47 software engineers, we have a corporate presence of 109 people. 2017, we started offering our services to.
Sorry, if I may just interrupt. I think this is being streamed live on Facebook by Block 71. So if you can just come here in front of the camera,
All
everyone
right.
can see you as well.
Okay, thank you. So what I was saying that, including the software engineers and other corporate members, we have 109 people. In 2017, we started providing our services to US market for the US doctors basically. And since then we have been growing. Right now we have close to 300 people, like 273 to be exact, leading an engineer, what with the exact numbers. But as Tosif showed in his presentations, that we have a huge amount of young talent who are good in English and also very hungry for success. They're looking for opportunity. So whether it is in software side or in other fields, there are a lot of people who are hungry for success. And in fact, that's what we saw in Bangladesh, and that's why Augmedix is in Bangladesh. And as per the plan, by 2021, we are projecting, we're forecasting that we will have close to 2,000 people in Bangladesh. So that's the goal, and that's what we are focusing on right now.
Awesome.
Thank you, Tosin.
Thank you so much, Rashid, for sharing your experience. So just to get the audience involved a bit more, we're happy to answer questions. We have panel members who can take questions from you as well. Rashid bhai, since he has experience of setting up a center for startups in Bangladesh, he can answer questions. So if you have any, and also based on the previous PPT that we presented, if you have any questions on anything, please do let us know right now. Any questions from the audience?
I would like to, I mean, because you were saying that the kind of problems that you face is only forgot the food. But didn't you find anything red taping government initiatives missing in Bangladesh, or one-stop service like doing business in Bangladesh?
So just to clarify,
He's outsourcing, I know.
yes. So maybe Inada-san would be better positioned to answer that.
Government support.
Yes, and did you face any bureaucratic problems in terms
Like
of getting the
setting up
permits?
companies, getting licenses.
Setting company itself is very smooth. Within 2 or 3 months, we can get the license. But as for my private visa, it takes 6 or 8 months. It's a long process. So because I work in several companies, so I'm a bit special case though, that maybe I need to prove my previous pay tax, this kind of things. It takes huge time, and so maybe for the first runner, I mean, it takes more shorter, but
Yeah.
for me a bit longer.
But what kind of visa did you apply for? Is it a working visa?
Worker visa, employment visa,
Employment visa.
and second time, third time, so that's why it takes huge time.
Okay. So I think you had a question. Yeah.
Thank you all for coming here. In your slides, you had some. Thank you all for coming here. My question is about when you do the due diligence to decide to go to Bangladesh, there were some pros and cons that were presented. Have you discovered any other pros and cons that we haven't talked about yet?
I think for us it was mainly looking at the talent. If there are talent in the country, and there is, that's number one. Number two is, of course, the economic advantage the country offers. That's number two. And number three is all the support from the government. As you know, that the government of Bangladesh is trying to set up a digital Bangladesh, and right now Bangladesh's #1 foreign currency comes through the apparel industry, and now for the next they're focusing on the IT industries, right? So LICT, the government officials we are here today, they have been supporting. So any challenges, if you talk to them, they try to help you to make it smooth. I think that's a tremendous support system we have in Bangladesh.
Maybe I can add something to that. I asked that specific question to her because for an entrepreneur, she being an employee, she didn't face that much of problem setting up and going in Bangladesh. But right now we do have some problems. I mean, the kind of services that you expect in Singapore, that's not available in Bangladesh. But good thing is within this year, government is setting up one-stop services for entrepreneurs to go over there and doing everything from licensing to getting work permits and staying over there, licenses and all will be easier, smoother. That's why I asked those questions. So that may be a problem that you might face if you go right now, but it will be solved within a year. Thank you.
Just to share one experience, we have a few colleagues in our company who are from different nationalities, and I think if I remember correctly, most probably in November we processed a visa for one of our foreign colleagues. Yes, for the first times, like in 2012-13, it took a lot of time, but when we processed this time, we found that VIDA, the organization who takes care of this, they have started providing a one-stop service, and they are issuing visa in as less as just 3 weeks. And in between 3 weeks, they will also issue you a temporary visa by which you can come, you can work. Thank you.
Just to add to that, we actually have a development center in Bhutan, and we had some team members come to Bangladesh for training, and they stayed for about 6 months to a year. And in the similar case, they needed a work visa. So initially there were some struggles because that was 3 years ago, but now it's a lot easier to bring them in. And we also had sent teams to our development center, so it's a lot easier now. And the government has really helped us in that scenario. So yeah.
It will be much easier after 2019.
Yeah.
So you had some feedback to give.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about your issues.
Okay. Yeah, so definitely it's a good place to start business. I mean, the opportunity is there, but just one of the person mentioned about we need to know the pros and cons and frank discussion so that we can improve. I understand the visa is not that, maybe it will be much easier, but getting the talent, I mean, we talk about talent because that is the main engine for IT. So how do you get the talent actually? And you mentioned that you are quite happy with the talent and you can get the resource easily, or you can keep them for a longer period. Because I have my personal problem, and I thought that because I went to East West University, I went to Prague University, asked them for internship, whether they have an internship program, because I interviewed more than 100 applicants, but I found that the things they mention in the CV, maybe it's not exactly what actually expected as an employer. So that is the challenge, to getting the resource or the talent actually. So what actually we can improve that area so that the startup, those coming from overseas or we are going there, so we can get a better selection or better resource in the.
So maybe
Actually, I completely agree and appreciate the question and the concern. We as CXOs have been talking about addressing this issue for a very long time, but what I feel very happy to have attended this session today, because it took Singapore 10 to 15 years to change the mentality of the students as well as the parents, to attract young graduates into the industry, into the startup space. So very similarly, our government and all of us industry CXOs are really trying hard to make ourselves and our industries and our companies more attractive. So it is going to take some time, and I think it's best we are realistic about that. But we are getting a lot of work from abroad in local and foreign markets, and we've got 24 companies here, and the amount of experience, local and foreign, actually should be, I think, in a way, proof that we are actually working with the resources we have, and we have a lot of training facilities in-house as well as supported by the government. So it's a slow process, but we're getting there, slowly but surely.
If I may ask you a question, how do you source talent today? That was a specific question.
Yeah. So currently we do, we actually are trying to get university graduates, and then we train them in-house based on the specific role that they're supposed to be in. We also have some programs that the government is running, which is separate for managers and so on. So we're a part of the training program as well. But more specifically, it's in-house training, catering to their job or their roles.
I can add though another startup in Bangladesh. I can't remember the name, but they help us a lot. They have online platform to actually siphon out the talent. They have exams for the candidates, so that the problem that you face, we face it all the time. The 24 of us face all the time. It isn't that we don't face it, but there are tools that can be used, and as I say, there's a company which actually helps us. If I talk to them, they will arrange the questionnaires online, and based on that, they can select for us.
I think you have something to add as well.
So our company name is Brain Station 23. So we are a software development team of 200 people now. So the way we actually recruit talent is from all over Bangladesh. The way we do is we circulate that there is of course an opening, and then there are a lot of CVs. I mean, Bangladesh is a country of 160 million or maybe 170 million. So a lot of people actually apply. Then what we do is we send out a Google form with multiple choice questions for some tests. So out of that, what happens is we do the primary selection from their home, and from there this year last year when we were recruiting for fresh graduate, there was 3,000 applicants, and out of that we send out Google form, and then for our company we have very high expectation for talent, because we only work with foreign clients mostly, and with the top of the startups and also large enterprises. So we have very high expectation from talents. So from the multiple choice, we shortlisted 200 people. Then they come to office, and from that 200 people, we shortlisted 40 people. Till this part, the selection process is completely automated. So individual developers don't need to spend any time by interviewing them. Then after that, we take the interview, we do the psychological test, and then we see who is a team player and cultural fit for our organization, and from that we do the test. So the reason of sharing this experience is because, I mean, if you go to other places, other destinations, like if you go to India, India has got really good, great talents there. But what happens is, if a company like ourselves, a 200 people company, goes to India, I mean, they would not be able to attract the top talents like we can in Bangladesh. So that is the big advantage of it. In India, it would be difficult to attract this talent. So that is a big advantage that I have seen in our company. So I just want to add a small story there. So I was meeting a startup founder. So he is based in Shanghai, and he has 7 developers in Shanghai. They are working on cryptocurrency-based startup. So they are adding security layer for Ethereum. So a lot of C++ coding. So they were facing challenge to acquire that level of talent in Shanghai. So they started operation in Bangladesh also. and within 6 months they got the right kind of talent they needed for 6 people. That said, I mean, you may have heard about Bangladesh, you may have of course heard about different challenges as well. So the best way to mitigate the challenge is to work with a local partner who has been there for really long time, because you know all the solutions to all the problems. I mean, there are some problems that you may have heard about, but of course there are solutions that the Bangladeshi software companies has been able to solve. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name is Rafi. I work for the company GenWeb2, the called GenWeb2. We have our head office here in Singapore, and our software development center is based out of Dhaka, for getting the benefits that Tosib has described. So sir, just to, I second that what you have said, and we understand your pain. So certainly the thing is visible. So what we see is what we get is the thing. So yeah, I agree with what you said previously. There was a problem, like what I have said, what I meant, what you have heard, and what you have understood. There was a deviation. But yeah, things have been improved for the last couple of years. And one of my fellow colleagues, they have described the rigorous recruitment process. So what we do here at GenWeb2, whenever we are hiring a fresh recruit, we don't make them client facing. We don't give them in production. They're sitting on the bench and they're learning with the veteran people, with the colleagues. And in a tactical way, this is not very healthy for the balance sheet, but in a strategic way, we're having benefit out of it. So on behalf of GenWeb2 and on behalf of other companies here from Bangladesh, I can assure you the problem you have faced previously, it has been eliminated. It's a far better situation now. And I have one more question. Is it a good time to ask? Okay. So this question is for the panelists and also for the startup community members here. So what I was wondering, whenever you are onboarding mercenaries from Bangladesh, probably the engagement model is time and material or fixed bid project based on the scope or based on the requirement. So have you ever considered the revenue sharing model? When I'm saying revenue sharing, I mean the revenue in terms of IP or in terms of equity. So the reason behind I'm asking that, so the technology in Singapore has certainly reached to a certain stage. Now you need to bring the commercial pathway. And if you look at Bangladesh, as Tosib has described, we are mostly service rendering companies. And we are also looking for to making the quantum leap. So what we are wondering, if we can leverage, if we can have a model which is more like revenue sharing, perhaps it will be a positive sum game for both of us, and we will have a skin in the game. So by doing this, we can guarantee the success. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You know, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the industries that you are serving, the type of clients that you have, before we look at, you know, how do we split the pie. Specifically to sort of the e-money, e-wallet sort of things, that's obviously practical. But before you want to consider revenue sharing or anything like that, I think you need to have a very strong bond, because it interlinks you to the point that it's very hard to unbundle. So I think based on my relationship with insurers, when we talk about Project 1, it's CAPEX model. Number 2, and then number 3 and 4, we're starting to look at different remuneration models where we both have skin in the game. So not only is he incentivized to go with me, but he's incentivized to stick with me. I think it's quite important. I think one thing that we've not really mentioned this evening is pricing versus value. I've selected my guy not because he was purely the cheapest, and he's not. And I think that reflects very well on the quality of Bangladeshi talent and the maturity of the industry. There's a good balance, you know, and I think that's very important to recognize.
Yep, that's a very good point.
In addition, I think you have actually partnered with someone, right, for your
Yeah,
venture?
that's true. As a current business, we have revenue sharing with several licensed partners because we running the remittance company. And so many counterparts, not only one but also several. So it's really pain for us and to think about how to revenue share. But as mentioned about the yeah, how can I say, open-minded to share our cost honestly. So then the counterpart very seriously take it and to offer us at some particular good rates. So only we can do is, yeah, sincerely to calculate, open the business sheet and also cost sheet, and for them open mind. That's only we can do it.
Maybe we'll just take one last question. You had your arms up a long time back. So.
Thank you for this opportunity. So my question is that in one of the slides of this presentation, there was the stat that if something costs $100 to be set up in India, it would cost like $80 to be set up in Bangladesh. But the thing is that the difference in economy between Singapore and Bangladesh, I feel is so much that suppose the product that the company where I'm working, suppose it sells for like $200 in Singapore, I'm quite sure it won't sell for the same price in Bangladesh. People won't buy because it's so expensive. So I would have to reduce the price drastically over there. So do you think that if I go and set up a market over there, as in my office over there, the decreasing cost of setting up the thing is justifiable to the reduction in price of the product that I'm selling over there?
Yeah. So maybe I'll just start off on that one and bring you in. One thing which Andrew mentioned towards the beginning of the panel discussion was in frontier markets such as he's working in Laos right now or in Bangladesh, one thing we have to always be very mindful of is what the demand is there, and you might need to strip off a lot of the bells and whistles in your product rather than adding a lot of stuff, right? Now, how do you make a product which is acceptable to that market is the first step. Second step, after you know that, okay, this is the market demand, is to see what the pricing for that product can be. Now you have taken off a lot of bells and whistles from the product, so ideally it should be cheaper to make since you have stripped it down. Hence your pricing can always go down. But pricing is never cost plus, it's always ideally willingness to pay on the basis of that. And hence the economic viability of the business model that you're talking about becomes much more tangible, much more viable. But coming back to the presentation, the purpose of that slide was not about setting up a business, it's about you are serving, let's say, nowadays with your technology, you're serving a technology product in Singapore, and you need 20 developers to develop a certain enhancement into that product. Or you need a certain, you're expanding into a different line, and you need another product to be developed. So starting from UI UX design to final development and then deployment, everything has to happen. Right? You have a few options. You have option A is I do it from Singapore. Option B is okay, I go out from outside Singapore and do it somewhere else where it's less costly. And if you do that, where do you go, right? Typically people go to India, Vietnam, Philippines, and we wanted to showcase that comparison. That if you go to India and source a solution, ideally it should cost, and build a solution, not source, build a solution in India by setting up a 20 people center there, it will cost you $100. If you do the same, set up a 20 people center in Bangladesh, it will cost you $80. So that's the difference. So slightly different context, I would say. Yeah, got it. Thank you. Sure, maybe I'll just give you the first opportunity since he raised his hand.
Most of the things have been said by Mr. Tawfiq, but just for just adding to the value of it. A few research, just I forgot which year, the purchasing power parity that you have in Singapore, the amount of persons in Singapore can be found in Dhaka only. In Dhaka, there is that many people, in fact more than that many people that live in Singapore. Right. So you are looking for niche markets, it already exists in Bangladesh. It isn't that you can't sell $200 products over there. If that has value, you can sell it. We have niche markets over there. As I said, Dhaka got more, it's not a very good thing. Bangladesh is the fastest growing billionaires probably. millennials, 17% growth in millennials, which is not a very good thing for our economy. But the thing is, there are affluent people who can buy those things. That's my point. Just to address that.
To further add, when you're stripping away certain things from your product, first you need to make sure that there is a desire for the product. Of course, I'm sure you will do the basic market research, but also if you do reduce the price, if it's a low ticket, high price, then it makes sense. But if it's low price, high ticket, as in high number of volumes, then that also makes sense. Because Bangladesh has a huge population, and that's a plus point if that's a product that you're being able to sell to the general population. So it depends on the product and also to the market that you're going to be targeting. So I hope that helps. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Maybe quick.
Very quick one, because I want to go back to my one point, the talent. Okay, so may I request you guys, because you came here all the way and 24 or 25 companies here is very rare event with government resource here. So I was thinking, why not all those 24, 25 companies, if you take internship from those universities, if you take 5 or 10 students, and we will get every year so many good talent. So why not you?
That program is already.
Oh, you see it? Okay. So that is the point. Actually, my question was that is there any internship programs or any place that we can go and dig out the talent?
Sorry, the cost of interruption.
This experience that you had, talent acquisition experience, how long ago was that?
Oh, I met Dr. Farashuddin last year, and their IT department chairman also.
So you
beginning of last year, and this told me, and I met one of the CEO, I think DataSoft, Mr. Mr. Mahbub. So they are facing the same problem, and we are talking about where is the internship program, because that will give access to some talent pool and who has some experience with the industry, not fresh.
So it looks like from this group, things are changing, and so you wanted to add something?
Actually, I think, the internship programs are there for many years. So you see, you have two types of internships. One type of internships where the universities actually put students in different companies, and it's for a credit. So companies may choose to pay them or not pay them, but they have to finish that internship as a degree requirement. So that's one type of internships. Even through our Software Industry Association basis, such circulars are given to our members on a regular basis. But then there are some of the larger companies such as mine or Softech or others. We have our own internship programs. So every year we hire 5 or 10 interns for marketing, for software engineering, and we put them through the steps to train them as per our own internal processes to get them ready. And out of them, usually from our experience, of course, from let's say a pool of 100 applicants, you would probably hire 10. And out of this 10, usually 6 would work out okay for us. So that's 60% of the intern intake, so which is not bad. So to answer your question, at the entry level, there is a very large pool of really talented pool of workers available in Bangladesh. There is no problem there. The problem is in the mid-level. So that's where this project is trying to help us. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for your questions and a very interesting discussion that we just had. I'd like to thank the panel members for coming in. Andrew, thank you for coming in from Laos, all the way from Laos. Thank you, Inada-san, for coming in from Kuala Lumpur as well and sharing your experience. So I'd like to now hand over to Mr. Sami Ahmed, the component team leader of LICT project, to wrap this up.
Thank you, Tausif. Thanks for moderating this panel. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Inada-san, for coming out here to talk to the startups and also talk about your Bangladesh experience. And thanks to the startups from Block 71 who's come here, and anybody else who's come here to learn more about Bangladesh. So just want to touch on a few things. You asked questions about talent, and so this project, LICT, we are working with the private sector to help some of these issues, to take them forward. There's the issue of talent, there's the issue of business development, going to global markets, helping global companies come to Bangladesh and set up. So that's where the government is investing right now. So one of the issues with talent, it's not that Bangladesh has a lack of talent, but the industry is still SME and it's growing, so you don't attract the right talent all the time. But it's changing. We have run, as government, we have run along with industry for the last few years. We have run massive campaigns across the country to let people know how the industry is changing and what's happening, the different startups that are happening. So the startup ecosystem is also helping Bangladesh and to attract the new talent to come into this industry, and actually, these are things that are slowly progressing. It's a growing economy. If you want to, so for example, he asked about the purchasing power, so Bangladesh is a very growing economy. So if you go to Dhaka, many of the things you'll find there is not cheaper than in Singapore. And you find that there's a huge market. It depends upon what your product is, who's your client is, It depends on that actually, how do you price your product when you go to Bangladesh. You don't necessarily have to strip it down or lower the cost. So the market study will be very important. And somebody did mention that when you go to Bangladesh, it may be overwhelming because of the culture and the differences. So finding a local partner is also very key for you to slowly get adjusted to the market. Saying all this, if you are interested to talk about Bangladesh, to learn more about Bangladesh, and if you're interested to invest in Bangladesh, I know you are. So you're welcome to contact with us, contact to BCG or directly to LICT project. You can get our information and we can help you. So again, thank you for coming. I think there's some snacks outside, some tea and snacks. So please help yourselves, and I think we can network between ourselves while we do that. Thank you.
Yeah. You're when in the US are you guys
San Francisco.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I went to school in NYIT.
Oh, kind of nearby.
My MBA in NYIT.
Oh, cool. And you were the person who was starting